Namaste, Julie Hoyle.
Namaste.
This is Richa from The Maverick, and it was such a pleasure communicating with you, interacting with you. The last icebreaker session both of us had completely took me out of my zone, and I've been thinking and talking about it. Uh, I don't know the one word with which I can introduce you. I don't know. Do I say a yogi? Do I say a human? Do I say an author? Do I say a content creator? Do I say, so why don't we say this is one of the most beautiful souls on the planet, which is doing whatever the best a human could do, looking at this life as an opportunity and allow you to fill up this space with your presence.
Thank you so much. What is a beautiful introduction. And, I'm with you. I really struggle when I've been asked to do a bio for an article or for, a presentation or something. I never know what to say because nothing is real. We utilize those titles, right, to describe, a teacher, an author, a content creator, whatever it is. But the truth of who we are is prior to those labels. And I do my best to encourage people to discover who they are prior to the story. So, so it'll be fun to explore that today.
So, Julie, can we get to the point zero of the journey right now? I think that's where we should begin from, the point zero, from where the first nudge came into you of this is not what it is, there is something else. Let's start from there.
So that knowing, it wasn't even a nudge, it was an absolute knowing that I wasn't the story. There was more to life than my name and, my family and how I was being defined. I just always knew that since I was a child. And what really reinforced all of that is having been gifted with lucid dreams. From the earliest age, I was having lucid dreams, out-of-body experiences, visitations from angels, visits from people who had passed over, family members who had died. I would hear and see things, when, for example, when family members or friends would come by, my parents' friends would come by. Even though, they'd say, hi, how are you? I'm good, I'm good. I always knew that they were troubled or that there was something going on with them health-wise. And I just always thought that was how everybody operated and saw the world. And then, of course, through time, I found out that wasn't the way it was. And so I learned to sort of keep quiet about it and keep those things hidden from public view.
Was being different, was feeling different, was thinking different, and a realization that there was something wrong with you, or you were in that space or in that conscious awareness where you knew that there was something different, there was a different purpose behind the way you were feeling. And how did you take charge of your life after you felt that? Or was it a difficult process to go through, a transformation or an awakening? How would you explain that?
So essentially what happened, there were two things that were happening concurrently when I was a child. There was one very strong, urgent realization that I needed to find someone. I was looking for someone or something in the embodied form, and obviously I'm using these words as an adult. Those aren't the words I would have used as a child, but I was looking for someone or something that could prove what I knew was reality or was the truth. So there was that happening. And there was also this complete reliance on the unknown, the unknowable, the unspeakable. So, for example, I'll give you an example to sort of, for context. When I was, I think, around 14 or something like that, I failed 3 very important exams. I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. And to get into a teacher training college, I had to have what were called O levels then, which would then allow me to do my advanced studies to then be able to go to college. Well, I failed 2 or 3 really important ones. And so it looked like my opportunity to be able to go on to advanced work and go to college was done. So, but there was something within me that I trusted above what the mind was saying. And so I did what I usually would do, which was to take myself off to somewhere quiet. So I went to the park, the local park, and early one morning and just sat and was just looking at the trees and listening to the birds and feeling the wind on my face. This is way before I knew anything about meditation or going into the silence or any of those things, because I was raised a Catholic. And so I put this question out, what to do now? And then the answer came, continue, it's not over, speak to the teacher. So, the next day on Monday, I went, spoke to the teacher, said, look, I've failed these exams, can I read? And I knew what to say, can I resit them? She said, absolutely, we'll help you and we'll support you. So there was the trust, absolute trust in this communication that was always there and has always been there, and it's never failed me. And I trust that above everything. So, but at the same time, there was pain because I felt like there was no one I could communicate to about existence, about what I was perceiving, what I was feeling inside myself. And that's a lonely road to walk.
Definitely. In my last conversation with you, we realized that there was a mantra that hit you hard and there is a mantra that took over you. So tell us about the connection and the beginning of that mantra in your journey and how it just completely changed your life.
Yes. So the mantra is Om Namah Shivaya. And, Om is the primordial sound. Namah means I bow to, and Shiva, Supreme Consciousness or Lord Shiva, however you want to define that. But what happened was, as soon as I heard those syllables, there was an absolute recognition that I knew this mantra. I didn't even understand. The mind wasn't able to wrap itself around the deeper meaning of what this was. But there was this instant love for this mantra. And so I started to utilize it constantly without realizing it's the mantra of dissolution. I wasn't seeking anything. I wasn't seeking enlightenment. I didn't even really understand what that was. There was just this profound respect and profound love for this ancient mantra. And again, when you think in terms of the context, I was raised in a working class family as a Catholic. None of those things, mantras or what they meant, had any relevance. So I didn't understand any of it. It was just, it was love.
The mantra and the energy of it, did you understand? Like today you're speaking and understanding the mantra from the very root of it. But at that point of time, how did you decode with the energy of the mantra, and how did you continue the process of the chant, and how did you keep that yourself connected with the mantra, and how did the mantra connect with you to the forces of the universe after that?
So, I shared in our first meeting how the mantra was given to me in a lucid dream by a great being whose name is Bhagavan Nityananda of Ganeshpuri. He tapped me on the top of the head and gave me Shaktipat Diksha, which is the awakening of the Kundalini. What happened is, and I can only detail this now after the fact, the energy of the mantra itself came into my being and it took root. Somehow it took root in every cell of my being. So in a way, it was repeating itself. It wasn't like I was requiring any effort. I would hear it even when I was dreaming. I'd have a dream And then I'd remember this is a dream and I'm dreaming. I'd wait to lucidity. And then I would hear the mantra reverberating. And even in my classroom, because I was, teaching the whole time this was happening, I was repeating the mantra so much that oftentimes I would hear it bouncing. It was as if it was bouncing off the walls. And then I saw evidence of this. I had many students would come to the art room during lunchtime and breaks because they said, and again, it's a Christian context, but many of them said, we feel really calm in here. It's peaceful in here. My spirit feels good in here. They would say things like that. And one day, a young man came to see if he could sit, quietly in the art room. So he did. And then he said, Miss Julie, do you have any jobs you want me to do? And I said, oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. Yes, I need to get this board ready for display purposes. So if you could take off the old artwork and then clean it, that would be really, really wonderful. Thank you. So anyway, he starts to take the artwork off, and then he took a wet rag and he's wiping the surface of the board. And as he's wiping the surface of the board, it's going Om, Om, Om. He did it 3 times. I was so surprised. I sat up and I didn't say anything. I just sat and listened to him. And then he heard the syllable coming out of his mouth, and he stopped because he was a little bit, I think, shocked, because he's a Christian. It wasn't even in his lexicon. But what I realized was he was hearing feeling the vibration and hearing it. And so it was coming out of him as he was doing this simple task.
Beautiful.
And that happened again and again with just from what the students were saying. I knew they were receiving the mantra.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for sharing this thought, because it identifies, and I can feel it the way it must have happened in that space. Taking you from this point to the next point of when you reached the point wherein you knew that this is it. From the journey of this is not it to the journey of what this is it. Which was the moment when you wanted to pen all this down into the books? What and how much time did you take for your vulnerability, for your empathies to balance? How did you balance those energies and put all that knowledge that was coming into you in the form of books, so that people could have a deeper understanding of how they were feeling and getting some, they could resonate with what you are saying? Tell us something about that transformational journey.
Okay, so I received Shaktipat Diksha in the dream, which started everything in February of 1989. So from that point on, I was continued to have incredible lucid dream visits with great beings, with master yogis, with Sufi masters. I was given initiations and I went through all kinds of things for years. And essentially I was told to keep quiet. I wasn't speaking to anybody about it. I understood the sanctity and the sacredness of what I'd been given. And I knew that it was important to really honor that and really sit with it and allow it to do its work. So there was very much there was this internal kind of churning that was happening. In that time too, I had to do shadow work, which was very challenging. And that was part of the process. So that was 1989. Then there were years of doing the work. And then in 2007, so do the math, from 1989 to 2007 is a long time. And I had a lucid dream. And one of the siddhas in the lucid dream said, when are you writing the book? And I said, what am I supposed to write about? And she just went like, come on now, she's looking at me like this, as if you're a dummy. Come on, wake up. And so I didn't say anything. And then she started to walk away, and then she looked over her shoulder and she said, "It's important to understand your journey." And then, so I took that on as a command. I really took it on as a command. But when I came out of the lucid dream and woke up, I said, "I'm not writing anything if it comes from ego. I'm just not interested. It cannot be done that way." And then I just forgot all about it. And 2 or 3 weeks passed by. And one morning I was sitting having coffee, and then I heard the words that it was as if they were being dropped in. And I just started writing them down in my journal. And that was really how the first book started. And from there, more books were written. But there wasn't a plan. I didn't have a goal to be a writer. I was very surprised. For me, it was more about honoring the command of the guru and just doing what I'd been asked to do, even though I didn't have a clue about what that would look like.
As per the growing up years and the culture and the background that you come from, to accept and surrender to a guru and to follow the tradition of complete surrender to the guru and follow the instructions of the guru, was it an ego fight, or did it take time, or it just happened because your inside completely agreed with it?
It was immediate. I'm getting goosebumps as I'm saying it because, the way I've detailed it is that as soon as I laid eyes on Bhagavan Nityananda in the lucid dream, everything collapsed. There was an absolute recognition that he was the one that I was seeking. And there was this recognition that, that his form was the form of God. And what I had been seeking was proof in an embodied form that God is real and that what I was perceiving was valid. And so that was given via the initiation from Bhagavan Nityananda. And I've always trusted that more than I've trusted the movement of the mind, the doubts, anxiety, or whatever else comes up. Because I know when I'm being asked to do anything, support will be there, even if I don't have a clue. And even if fear sometimes comes up, I just know somehow it will work out.
That's beautiful. So today, when you stand as an awakened human being, a soul which has seen the journey of transformation, the light, followed the light, understood unknowingly the path of seeking, and you look back and today, do you understand what seeking is all about? Can you tell us something? What actually seeking means, and is it the same for everybody?
Yeah, I think the root of seeking is the same for everybody. It's the longing to return to oneness with God. Because what happens is, and from what I've seen, as babies come into the world and they're still immersed in God. This is why we love babies. We love holding babies because babies are still at one in that place of, joy and surrender and acceptance of their oneness with God. And then, of course, what happens is we're given a name. We are taught the names of things. We take on identity. The ego is formed. And then somehow we forget. We turn away from God. And then we spend the rest of our lives seeking God and trying to return to our original innocence. So, some people don't seek as long as I was seeking. I didn't even realize I was seeking, actually. You only recognize it afterwards. But even though Bhagavan Nityananda gave me initiation and I recognized him as the one I'd been searching for, it took some time to kind of process and integrate what was given and just come into this place of recognition, I guess is the best way of putting it.
So Julie, now today when you look at people, you're a trained Reiki, NLP, you've done hypnotherapy. So my question to you is, from where I've learned as a human being, or I've experienced, to what is hypnotherapy is to what is seeking. Hypnotherapy to outside and to seeking to inside. When you can read yourself inside, is hypnotherapy and seeking an awakened person. Is it the similar process for inside to outside?
What are you asking me? Is hypnotherapy helpful with respect to awakening? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. So I did. I did hypnotherapy training some years ago now. I think in the 90s. It was I think a month-long course. It was really wonderful. It was very helpful. It was helpful with respect to working with people to take them into a kind of an altered state so that they can connect with the subconscious, and in some cases connect with past lives and extract information that is ordinarily locked away, and not easy to access, especially for somebody who has a mind that is, very kind of busy, and they strongly identify with the intellect and all of those things. So it can be very helpful. For some people, I haven't seen that hypnotherapy has led to, let's say, full awakening. I think it's helpful as a part of the process, and it can be insightful, and it can really help you see those places where you're stuck, and it can help you break through addictions and all of those things. But I wouldn't say it was a big part of my awakening to what is. The biggest, most powerful influence was the mantra, utilizing the mantra. And of course, like I said, I didn't have any clue. I was just repeating it because I loved it so much.
So today, when my reason for asking you this question is that whenever we get onto the spiritual path, we try to open our minds, and this quest about past births, a lot of awakened souls have experienced. I have gone through that journey, wherein we start seeing our past births. We start seeing the reason of animosities, the problems. So with you have written those books, you've experienced. Have you had a peep into your past births in your dreams or in real life, or you've just had the moment, oh, you knew that this is happening because of that? So I'm saying it's a tough one. Hypnotherapy vis-a-vis spiritual journey. If somebody is getting into hypnotherapy and you're making the person get into the subconscious, but at the same point of time, you're doing your seeking journey, and your level of meditation and your dhyana gets to that level wherein you can just peep in into those layers. So how do we do a vis-a-vis of that? That's a technical part, and that's subconscious. That's something that you've got yourself to, that state of consciousness wherein you're actually peeping into, and this is happening because of that.
Yeah, so let me speak first of all with respect to my own personal experience with past lives. Many, many years ago, I went on retreat to I forget where it was, St. John's, I think it was, in Minnesota somewhere. And there was a workshop on, past life, looking at the past life. So we did this little meditation, and then we were looking at this past life. And I saw something that I felt was really interesting. I saw myself as a woman in Eastern Europe working with cloth and weaving, and so it spoke to, I came out of it, and it spoke to my interests in this lifetime, my orientations in this lifetime. But I really felt I'm not too interested in diving into past lives, unless they show up and they are important for me to be able to learn from. I'm not going to, because, some people get really involved with, past life workshops and this and that and the other. That was enough. But what happened was 4 or 5 times, maybe 6 times, I had lucid dreams where I woke up in the dream and I knew this is a past life. I saw myself in this past life. In one, I was cycling. I was a male. I was on a bike, cycling through Gloucestershire in the UK. I've never been to Gloucestershire. Driving through Gloucestershire, and I was a doctor. And everybody that was passing was, saying hello. And then I came out of that dream and I realized, oh, there's this part of me that, you know, longs to be able to help people to heal and to recognize who they are. This is where this comes from. You know, and then another lifetime, I saw myself as I was living in Switzerland. I was in this house that was kind of built into the side of a mountain. I'd never seen such a thing, heard of such a thing. Later, I understood that yes, people do that and have done that. And I saw myself heavily pregnant. I had 2 children. I died I was about to give birth and I died. And, you know, I saw myself kind of elevating, coming out of the body and looking down at the body. So, you know, all of this then shone light on, again, aspects of my relationship, my interests and my family life here in this lifetime. So those things came to me without me seeking for them, you know, and they did shine light, but it's shining light on the story, and the story is limited.
I agree. So you've mentioned that you've had these experiences, you've had these dreams, you have visitations. Did you ever feel scared? Did fear ever catch upon you? The fear of the unknown, as we call it. Did you? Were you ever scared? You got up in the middle of the night. Oh, what am I seeing? How did your family react to that? How did your partner react to that? What was the social support or the social structure around your situation? Because people don't treat this as normal when they look at a situation like this.
No, so let me respond to that in 2 parts. The only time I was scared in lucid dreams is when I was dealing with what I would call the shamanic work, negative entities coming. And again, I found out after the fact that in the Buddhist tradition, monks will go and meditate. And I think it's true in the Hindu tradition as well. They'll go and meditate in graveyards. And they will do, especially in the Buddhist tradition, they'll do these meditations where they imagine themselves being pecked alive by crows. So I had several what I call shamanic dreams where I was taken and I was pinned to the ground. I was still, and you know, when you have a lucid dream, it's more real and more vibrant and more intense than the waking state. So I would have to close my eyes and cling to the mantra for dear life as these crows were coming and pecking out my eyes and eating the flesh off my bones. So I had many dreams like that, and encounters with these very dark energies and entities. And there would be, just before that started, there would be this recognition, this is an initiation, and fear would come. And I knew if I went with the fear, I'd probably scream and wake myself up. But instead, I just clung to the mantra, closed my eyes, went inside myself and repeated the mantra. And then I would go through the, whatever it was, the initiation. And then when I came out of it, the energy of it was just profound. It was really amazing. And I knew later on, I discovered that all of these initiations and tests were a way of diminishing identification with the form, is the best way I could put it. So that's the first part of the question. I forget what the second part of the question.
The second part was the support,
support, yes.
Social structures.
Yes, so I guess because of my background as a kid and kind of having to be quiet about everything, I didn't ever need support or validation. My husband was amazing. He just gave me space. Sometimes I'd share a few things with him. Many times I wouldn't. I've usually had at least one person I can share with as a friend. But apart from that, I've just learned to, be quiet with it, integrate, and learn from it. I don't feel like I ever needed validation. validation that I had looked for as a child was given to me in the form of Bhagavan Nityananda, and has that his form and his presence in my life has continued.
Beautiful. So Julie, we've talked about it, and it's written that Bhagavan Nityananda gave you the initiation and the way your journey began. So tell us something about your connection to India, and how did you travel, and how those journeys have marked important milestones of your awakening process.
Yeah, so I can't say I'd ever wanted to go to visit India. I've always been fascinated by it, but it was, I think, in 1999, there was this growing feeling, I need to go to India. And I was talking to someone at the little meditation group that we were going to one time after satsang. And I said, I think I'd like to go to India. It might be really good. And he said, well, you should apply. So he said, don't just go for a visit. You should go on staff, because you've have amazing experiences, and you've been, working here for a long time, helping with Seva. And so my husband was really up for it. So we applied, and literally we had the answer within weeks. Normally it takes months, but the Board of Trustees happened to be at the ashram in upstate New York. They read the application. They said yes, pretty much immediately. And so within a matter of months, we closed everything up and went to India, and we were on staff at an ashram. And from the minute we landed in India, it felt like I was home.
Wow. So today you're staying at the Bahamas in physical space.
Yes.
And you're connected to Bhagavan Nityananda in the spiritual space as the Guru and the light. How do you put for a seeker, how important is this physical state to the spiritual state? Like, you belong to a place where you, like you said, you stepped into India and you felt you were home, and today you're staying in the Bahamas. It's across the globe. So what is the importance of the physical, being in the physical space of that energy field?
Well, it's more about, I've from a personal perspective, it's about having that relationship within my being. And then it doesn't matter so much where I am in terms of the physical location. And I can essentially be anywhere and be okay and be happy, But having that connection is really key, really, really key. And always has been. And what I'm seeing is that I've always followed that sort of divine guidance, the golden thread, the Father Bede Griffiths, who's he's a Christian mystic monk anyway. He calls it the golden thread. And I just love that, because it does feel like, and I've had dreams where these threads or these cords fall from the sky and I'm hanging on to them, and then I'm swinging like Tarzan. Because it's all about that inner connection. If you have that, then you'll never go wrong. You'll never go wrong.
This is again resonating. So for a seeker, for a person who's beginning, who's getting out of the zone of the material life and getting pulled in towards the spaces of spiritual pondering, there are a lot of times that you get these signs. How do you identify yourself? Because you've been a teacher, you've realized being. How do you differentiate between signs of ego and signs of actual calling of the divine? How do you differentiate?
So one of the easiest ways to differentiate is to see the repetition. When it comes from the divine, it will keep showing up. So for example, I was just speaking to a client the other day about this. about, you know, she said she's always had since a child this longing to write a book. She almost felt like a compulsion, like she's been called to write a book. And here she is, she's in her 30s. And she was asking the same question. And my response was, well, look, if it was egoic, if it was this egoic idea, you know, maybe I'll become rich and famous if I write a book, you know, that would have fallen away probably 20 years ago. And you moved on to something else. The ego loves change. The ego loves to bring something new in, something different, next. But when it's authentic and it comes from source and it has meaning and purpose for that person, then it will keep trying to get their attention, and with the same message, it doesn't change.
Taking a thread from this, repetition. A lot of people look for meaning in repetitive numbers. And I think the New Age philosophy of the portals and the repetitive numbers, what do you have to say about that? Because that's the new thing that's everybody's catching on, you know, the portal, the numbers, the repeated cycles. Shed some light on that, please.
Yeah, it's okay. I think it can be helpful, but it can become limiting if there's an obsession around that, and then all you're doing is looking for that. Again, it's the mind's play. It's the ego looking for validation, you know, looking for proof or whatever. There's a lot more than that. There's a lot more. You know, if you just give up on trying to find God through numbers or through portals or whatever, and just connect with God in nature, and the simplicity of nature, the simplicity of the sky, the simplicity of clouds. You know, it's always here proving itself, right? We don't need to add these kinds of tests or layers over the top of that. You know,
I'm taking this as a validation of the questions I was having last week in a lot of readings that I was doing about when I was talking about people about quantum physics and how vibrationally people are trying to figure out the scientific vibrations of different mantras. And the way you put it is so simple that just go out, God is out there. So there's lots that we can talk about, but we can keep it for the next session. Tell me something. For anybody who's just started, you know, we don't start. We've been like birds and birds. We've been walking on it from that one moment of just getting bored with everything to just finding that. What would your advice, your suggestion, your one golden thread of connectivity to that person that you would pass on? What would you say to that person?
For someone who's just starting out, you mean? Is that what you're saying? Yes. So I would say just keep it simple. So, for example, I like to give, you know, anecdotes because I think it really helps. There's a woman who came to me and wanted some support, and she said, look, you know, I've read all the books. I'd love to go on retreat, but I can't. I'm a single mom with 3 children. How am I supposed to get to these advanced states? You know, what does that look like? So I just said, well, do you take care of your children? She said, yes. I said, do you feed them? She said, yes. I said, do you peel potatoes and cook in the kitchen? She said, yes. I said, well, just repeat a mantra or repeat a prayer that's authentic for you. Don't try and push a mantra on if it doesn't feel authentic. If you come from a Christian, you know, belief system, you know, say the Jesus prayer or, you know, some sort of simple prayer of peace and connect in that way. Because when you do that, you're connecting in with the self, with presence, with source, or however you want to describe it. You don't have to, I mean, it's great if you can go on retreat and step away from your life. But if you can't, recognize that where you are is perfect for you to wake up to the truth of who you are prior to the story. And it can be done in the simplest way. It doesn't need elaborate rituals. You don't have to sit for 3 hours meditating, you know, especially if you haven't got the time, you've got kids at home.
So you've been dealing with a lot of clients, you've been talking to a lot of people. Julie, what is and how is it that you manage those boundaries where your inside doesn't get triggered by outside, wherein your vulnerability doesn't get taken for granted at times. How do you create those boundaries, those energy fields to safeguard your own energies and keep going on your journey?
Yeah, well, you learn those things in the beginning. And again, I had no plan to become a counselor, whatever you want to call it, advisor, teacher, whatever you want to call that. One of the gurus, one of the Siddha masters came to me and said, will you do the work? And I understood what that meant. And I said, yes. And then, started then receiving requests from clients for help. But, I had to learn how to create boundaries in the beginning so that I wasn't continually available and on call. So it helped having a website, creating a website and then just kind of articulating the times that I'm available and all of those things. And, when you think about it, even like with Nityananda, he would disappear and he would show up when people wanted to see him, but he wasn't available 24/7. Well, he's available in dreams and in terms of his presence and connectivity, he's available. But when he was in the physical form, he was very clear about, when people could see him.
You would put it that boundaries are a very important part on the spiritual journey. So that is what somebody walking on this path need to understand and encrypt in their own customized spaces of life.
Yes, yes.
And one more this will be the last question, because I don't want to keep you waiting. Plus, I want people to have it slow and steady because we'll have a lot of sessions. How would you explain non-duality and oneness in the simplistic ways, in your own simple ways, which you are?
It's one's authentic self, one's authentic nature prior to the story is the simplest way I can put that, which we're all very familiar with. Again, when you go outside, you look at the sky. I'm looking at the, sky out through my window here. Or you go to the ocean, you're standing in front of the ocean. You're not standing in front of the ocean with your story, putting your story or your problems in front of the ocean. You're just there with the ocean. You're connecting in with that, with the fullness of that and the expansive quality and nature of that. And that is our true nature. What happens is we kind of overlay our nature with the story and the beliefs and questions and thoughts and doubts and so on. And it's much simpler than that. Much simpler.
It actually comes down, makes me feel like that it all comes down to the one thought that just be.
Yes.
Don't try to be, just be. And once we just be, I think in that space of oneness, when we just try to be, is that we really find the road opening up and the road talking to us at times.
Yes.
Walk on. This is where you walk. Thank you so much for being what you are, and I hope and I pray that this communication that we've had today resonates with a lot of people, helps a lot of people to understand their journeys and progress on the path of seeking. And all the very best to you. Thank you so much for taking out this time. You're a very, very busy person, and yet again, namaste and Om Namah Shivay.
Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this time and the opportunity.